What's up, Graham? It's Guys here. Today I'm going to be talking about the economy and the interest rates and the stock market. No, today I'm going to be talking about how interest rates affect the economy, the stock market, and investments, and why that raising interest rates can lead to higher unemployment. I'm talking about this because I see a lot of thumbnails. This is just going to tell y'all what YouTube recommends to me. I see a lot of thumbnails about how the housing market's going to crash today and the stock market is down, you should buy now, and here's how you invest to make money in an economic downturn. Great stuff like that. But I don't see a lot of videos explaining why the stock market goes down or the housing market crashes or why people lose their jobs in a rising interest rate environment like the one we have now. So I thought that it would be nice for me to talk about that. So for businesses to pay employees, they have to make money. For businesses to pay employees, they have to have money. And businesses have money in one of two ways. They either make money, that's called operating income, or they borrow money, that's called debt. When companies take on debt, there's a cost associated with that. That's called interest payments. So when you get a mortgage at a 2% interest rate, that means that each year you pay the bank 2% of the amount of money that you owe them. While you're paying off a mortgage, you're paying a portion of your principal and a portion of your interest. So that means that if you borrow $1 million at 2% in the first year, you pay a portion of your principal with your mortgage payments, but you also pay... Wow, why do I do math in every video now? Echo! 0.02 times 1 million. You end up paying $20,000 in interest by the end of the year, roughly. Now, believe it or not, most companies don't make enough money to pay every expense in a year. In fact, a lot of companies end up borrowing some money, even if they have cash on hand, so that they don't have what's called liquidity issues or liquidity crises or liquidity events. Liquidity. So companies go out and borrow money in one of two ways, either longer term or shorter term. Those are known as the money market or the capital market, depending on the length. That's not all that significant. But what matters is when you borrow money, the cost associated with it is determined by the interest rate. So when the interest rate goes up, the amount that a company has to pay in order to receive that money from the bank, that goes up as well. So that gets factored into what's called a company's cost of capital. The cost of capital determines what money costs for a company. That's determined by its return on equity that shareholders expect and what the bank expects interest to be paid on its debt. So when the bank raises the interest rate, the company has to pay more money on what it's borrowed. Now the problem is that companies borrow money to make internal investments. So whereas you and I think about, oh, I'm gonna invest, I'm gonna take $100 every year and I'm gonna put it in the stock market. A company takes money and then invests it in internal programs or internal projects. So recently, something that's been in the news has been Amazon's layoffs. So Amazon is laying off not just everyone from across the company, but certain people working on certain projects that didn't make as much revenue. Now, they lay off people who work on projects who don't make as much revenue because the return on their investment is lower. Does that make sense? If your wages are a company's investment, then they want to see a return on that. So think about if you have two cashiers in two different McDonald's, and one cashier does 10,000 transactions in a day, and one cashier does 1,000 transactions in a day, and they get paid the same. Which one would you lay off first? You would lay off the employee in the McDonald's that didn't do as much business because they simply aren't providing the same amount of value to the company. So what does that mean overall? It means that the higher the interest rates go, the higher the likelihood that we see greater unemployment. Now, if you think, well, the Fed has done its job by raising interest rates because now there's millions of people unemployed, there generally are millions of people unemployed. That's part of the evaluation problem. So there are three kinds of unemployment. There's cyclical unemployment, frictional unemployment, and structural unemployment. So cyclical unemployment occurs when like there are variations in the economy. Cyclical refers to the business cycle. So when the business cycle is up, more people have jobs, and when it's down, less people have jobs. Frictional unemployment is the unemployment caused by people leaving one job and going to another. So if you're unemployed for 15 days and the government knocks on your door, do you have a job? And you tell them no, then they count you as unemployed, even though you're only going 2 weeks without a job, which is not crazy. As Mr. Stephan would say, you really need to have 6 months savings in a rainy day fund. If you don't have 6 months savings, you don't need to be investing yet. Investing is for people who have extra cash above their living expenses. So, so stupid. So, frictional unemployment, people between jobs. So if you're without a job for 45 days, you might get counted twice, stuff like that. So my point is this: the fact that there are people that are unemployed doesn't mean that there's not enough jobs for everyone. And the Fed raising interest rates may not mean that they're trying to make the amount of unemployment go from 2 million people to 4 million people, or whatever it is now to whatever it will be next month. But it means probably that there are too many job openings, and that's causing people to switch jobs too frequently. So that's what the Fed is trying to avoid by raising interest rates. There's actually two kinds of prices too. There's non-sticky prices and sticky prices. So non-sticky prices are just what they sound like. They can go up, but they can come back down. So that's, most goods. If you start paying $6 for a carton of eggs, you're not just adjusting to that lifestyle immediately and thinking, oh, I'm just gonna pay $6 for a carton of eggs forever. No, you're a little bit ticked and you want to go back to paying $2.89 or whatever it was. But wages are what you call a sticky price, which means when the amount of money that you make in a year goes up, you don't want it to come back down. You're ticked when your wage goes down. And in fact, you'll leave a job and try to find another one at a higher wage every few years or so, like most people do now. So what the Fed is trying to do is not necessarily to keep inflation from hitting non-sticky prices. In fact, we've seen inflation hit a lot of non-sticky prices pretty heavily. That's why cost of used cars went way up and is still up, and eggs, soup, bread, every price is up. You don't need me to tell you that. But the Fed is trying to prevent everyone from getting a 20% raise over the next 3 years, because that means that every company's cost of input skyrockets, and companies start hiking prices on you, the consumer, just based on the expectation that prices are going to continue to go up at whatever rate you've been getting a raise at. So you getting a raise is a good thing. Everyone else getting a raise is a bad thing. Remember that. So there's an expression among institutional investors that goes, don't fight the Fed. So I guess in our daily lives, no matter what you see in the news, maybe that's the takeaways. Don't fight the Fed. Not all unemployment is bad. Sometimes it's the difference between 1 week and 5 weeks between jobs. And you should make sure that you're covered for that by having a 6-month rainy day fund. So the next time you see headlines trying to convince you to be scared because the Fed wants to kill you, it probably doesn't. And there might not be as much to be scared of as people might want to sell you. So now hopefully you have a better understanding of interest rates, cost of capital, what a company views as an investment versus what a consumer views as an investment, as well as the different kinds of unemployment and why the Fed is trying to fight sticky prices versus non-sticky prices, and what the difference between those two are. And now you're the smartest person in the room. How does it feel? Wow, I guess Dora can't hear us. I gotta finish the sentences because I'm trailing
You're just
off.
listing things.
Yeah. Now, hopefully you have a better understanding of... Fudge, what have I talked about? So now, the next time you see a headline talking about how the Fed is gonna kill your parents' jobs, remember that it might. But maybe... no. But losing your job is really bad, and you will die. So hopefully you have a better understanding. So now hopefully you have a better understanding of why the Fed is trying to fight frig, 2% APR. This isn't that complicated. But it's not just that you owe the bank 2% of your mortgage amount. It's that you owe them 2% yearly.